Welcome to today's video, Acts 17 verse 28 explained. For in him we live, and move, and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. This powerful verse comes from the Apostle Paul's famous sermon at the Areopagus in Athens. To understand this verse fully, we need to look at what was happening when Paul spoke these words. Paul had arrived in Athens and was deeply troubled by the city being full of idols. The Athenians worshipped many different gods, and Paul saw an altar dedicated to an unknown god. When Paul addressed the crowd at the Areopagus, he was speaking to philosophers and people who believed in multiple deities. This was a very different audience than the Jewish crowds Paul usually preached to. Instead of starting with Old Testament prophecies, Paul began by talking about the true nature of God and our relationship to him. The verse has three main parts that reveal profound truths about God. First, Paul says in him we live. This means that our very existence depends entirely on God. Every breath we take, every heartbeat, every moment of life comes from him. We don't live independently or by our own power. Our life source is God himself. Second, Paul declares in him we move. This refers to all our actions, whether physical movements of our bodies or the movements of our minds and thoughts. Nothing we do happens apart from God's sustaining power. Even our ability to think, speak, and act comes from him. This shows God's intimate involvement in every aspect of our daily existence. Third, Paul states in him we have our being. This encompasses our entire existence and identity. Our very essence as human beings is tied to God. We exist because God created us and continues to sustain us. Without him, we would simply cease to exist. Paul then mentions that even your own poets have said this truth. He was specifically referencing Greek poets like Areopagus, who was from Cilicia, the same region where Paul was born. Areopagus had written about humans being the offspring of Zeus. Paul cleverly used this familiar concept to point the Athenians to the true God. He was building a bridge between their culture and the gospel message. By saying we are also his offspring, Paul emphasizes that all humanity has a special relationship with God as our creator. This doesn't mean we are divine, but it does mean we are made in God's image and have inherent value and dignity because of our connection to him. This verse teaches us about God's omnipresence and immanence. God is not a distant deity who created the world and then stepped back. He is actively involved in sustaining every aspect of creation. He is closer to us than we might imagine, yet he remains the sovereign creator of all things. For believers today, this verse reminds us of our complete dependence on God. It should humble us and fill us with gratitude. Every moment of our existence is a gift from him. It should also give us confidence that God is intimately involved in our lives and cares about every detail of our circumstances. This truth calls us to recognize God's authority over our lives and to seek him earnestly, knowing that he is not far from any of us.